The heart. The human heart is a muscular organ that pumps blood to our bodies. It provides us with oxygen and nutrients, and it helps remove metabolic waste. This organ is about the size of a closed fist, so usually the bigger the person, the bigger the heart. And it's also located in the thoracic cavity, in the chest area here, protected by the rib cage. This organ beats 100,000 times a day, about. So it works very hard. And also it points slightly to the left, so 2/3 of the mass is on the left and 1/3 is on the right. And this is because the left side of the heart pumps blood to the entire body while the right side only pumps to the lungs. So the left side needs a larger muscle to do its job. So the heart is surrounded by the pericardium, which is kind of like a protective covering made of a serous membrane that produces a serous fluid. It lubricates the heart and it prevents friction between the beating organ and the beating heart and other organs. It holds the heart in position and it maintains hollow space for the heart to expand into when it's full. It's made of 2 layers, so the visceral layer and the parietal layer. The visceral layer covers outside of the heart. This one here. Oops. This layer. And the parietal layer forms a sac. Oh, JK. I lied. This one is the visceral layer, and the parietal layer forms a sac around the outside of the pericardial cavity. So this one. So the heart wall is also made up of multiple layers. The epicardium is the outermost layer of the heart wall. And it's the same thing as the visceral layer of the pericardium. So it's the pink one here. It's a thin layer of serous membrane, so a smooth tissue membrane, and it lubricates and protects the outside of the heart. The myocardium is the muscular middle layer of the heart, so it's this layer here. It's the thickest layer of the wall, and it contains cardiac muscle tissue used to pump blood to the body and to the lungs. The third layer of the heart is the endocardium, which is the inner layer. It lines the inside of the heart, made of a smooth, simple squamous endothelium layer, and it keeps blood from sticking to the inside of the heart and forming deadly clots. So down here, we have a diagram. This is what simple squamous endothelium layer looks like, and it's basically just a layer of flattened cells. So moving on, the chambers of the heart. The atria are the smaller, less muscular chambers, and they're the receiving chambers for blood. This is the right atrium, and this is the left atrium. The right atrium receives blood from the superior and inferior vena cavas, which contain deoxygenated blood from the body. The left atrium receives blood from the pulmonary veins, which bring oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atrium. So also, the ventricles. The ventricles are the larger, stronger chambers of the heart. They're the pumping chambers, so they send blood out of the heart, and they're connected to arteries. The right side, the right ventricle, maintains the pulmonary circulation to the lungs, which means it sends deoxygenated blood into the pulmonary arteries to the lungs to get oxygenated. The left ventricle pumps blood to the body in a loop. So it sends oxygenated blood through the aorta to the body. Okay, so the valves. There are these valves prevent blood from flowing backwards into the heart. There are 2 types, atrioventricular valves and the semilunar valves. So atrioventricular valves, or the AV valves, are these ones here, the larger ones. These valves are near the middle of the heart between the atria and the ventricles. They let blood flow from the atria to the ventricles only and never the reverse. Attached to the ventricular side are chordae tendineae. which they're tough strings that pull on the valves to keep them from folding backwards. So they kind of look like that and like that. And it does this because the pressure in the ventricles are a lot greater than the pressure in the atria. So when the ventricles contract, the chordae tendineae pull back on the valves to make sure they don't fold backwards into the atria. So the tricuspid valve on the right side has 3 cusps or flaps, and they separate to allow blood through and connect to prevent backflow. The mitral valve, or the bicuspid valve, on the left is made up of only 2 cusps or flaps. So moving on, the semilunar valves. These valves are crescent moon-shaped cusps, and they're between the ventricles and arteries, which are blood vessels that send blood away from the heart. These are smaller than the AV valves. These ones down here, as you can see. And there's no chordae tendineae. They rely on blood pressure to help them keep shut, and they're cup-shaped to catch the blood. The pulmonary valve on the right prevents backflow of blood from the pulmonary trunk into the right ventricle. And on the left side, the aortic valve prevents the aorta from regurgitating blood into the left ventricle. So the heart has a conduction system, and it has 2 nodes, the SA node, or sinoatrial node, and the atrioventricular node, the AV node. The sinoatrial node, or SA node, is up here. It is a pacemaker of the heart and assesses the pace of the heartbeat. It's located in the wall of the right atrium, just below the superior vena cava, and it signals the atria to contract. The signal is picked up by the AV node, which is located also in the right atrium, just below the interatrial septum, which is the wall between the 2 atria. It carries the signal from the SA node to the AV node to the bundle of His, which is a bundle of nervous tissue, and then to the Purkinje fibers, which branch off to the left and right ventricles to signal them to contract. This stimulates the cardiac muscles to contract together and send blood out of the heart. One thing to note is that the ventricles contract at the same time and the atria contract at the same time. So when the right the right ventricle is contracting, the left ventricle is also contracting. So a coronary systole is when the cardiac muscle tissue contracts to push blood out of the chambers. The diastole, is when the cardiac muscle relaxes to allow chambers to fill with blood. So when you have a blood pressure reading, usually you'll get a large number over a small number, so like 120 over 80. That's the normal blood pressure reading of a healthy adult. So this systole is the larger number, and the diastole is the lower number. So moving on, the cardiac cycle. So the cycle is, so first we have the atrial systole, which means the atria contracts to push blood into the ventricles. The AV valves open and the semilunar valves close to keep arterial blood from re-entering the heart. The atria are smaller than the ventricles, so when they push blood into the ventricles, like here, it only fills up the ventricles 25%. Then the ventricles are still in diastole. The next stage is the ventricular systole, is when the ventricles contract and push blood into the aorta and pulmonary artery. The pressure forces the semilunar valves open and the AV valves close. So the atria are in diastole. Next is the relaxation phase, when all 4 chambers are in diastole. Blood pours in from the veins to fill up the atrium and the ventricles. And both atria and ventricles repolarize to prepare for the next cycle. The AV valves are open to allow blood into the ventricles, and the semilunar valves are closed to prevent regurgitation. So yeah, that's it for the blood. Thanks for watching.